What's up, everyone? This is the Tesla Beat podcast, week number 37. We have an amazing episode that we're really excited to get into with you guys. We have some Cybertruck impressions. Joe and myself had our first experience to see two Cybertrucks. We were able to get in both, and we were able to drive one. So we want to get into that with you because now we have, our real life experience that we can speak to, not only driving it, but also seeing people's reactions. What is this like what is it literally like going through LA and seeing people's reactions? Like, how polarizing is it? So we were able to do that. And then we're going to get into the Model 3 refresh and some other hot topics that have literally either broke this morning or over the past week. And of course, so we have our two regular hosts. We have Joe, Cybertruck list. So hopefully we can change that in the, I would say coming months. I'm not going to say coming weeks because, founder series get priority right now. And then we have Jeff Lutz, our supply chain expert. Hopefully Amy can join us. I know she's potentially really jet lagged from her trip, but let's get into it. Let me make sure. All right, we are live on Instagram as well. So as we jump into it, let's just quickly look at the stock price. Again, it's a new year, so I didn't feel like the year to date really did a good job of kind of continuing to tell a story. So I'm not giving you financial advice. I do know that there's been a nice dip and cool off on the Tesla stock. It was at a peak of like 250 over the past couple of weeks, 260, and it's gone down to 221. So, in my head, again, my personal things, this would be potentially a time to kind of buy some more. But yeah, it's cool to see that cool off. But again, they're up about 80% year over year at about $221. So I think, Joe, I'll let you kick it off. But what we have here is the Cybertruck. We were able to see two of them yesterday. So shout out to Unplugged Performance for giving us access to Dennis's Cybertruck, and then shout out to T Sportline for letting us get be able to see literally the first ever white satin Cybertruck wrapped car, and we were actually even able to drive it around, go do some cool testing. So both of these trucks are really unique in their own. The one on the left, the one at Unplugged, had their UP Invincible modifications with the wide body fender and their CyberHex wheels, and the one on the right had the fully forged T Sportline rims, where you actually can stick aero covers on it, and of course the white satin wrap with even the Foundation Series. You can see the little Foundation Series tag there as well. So it was really, really cool. But Joe, let me just pass it to you on your thoughts.
Yeah, no, these trucks are terrible. They are worth. No, I'm just kidding. So, it was pretty amazing especially the Unplugged Performance one. I was sitting on 22s, and it still looked pretty amazing. The T Sportline, they had a beefier tire, same tire size and everything as what comes with the Cybertruck, but they had a I think it was a Falcon wheel on it, but it looks so much more beefier. It looked like it had way more of a presence, and it was just the same size tire, but it looked way more rugged with that tire on that wheel. So that was pretty impressive. But I didn't really know how I feel about the white, but in person, of course, with everything Cybertruck, the in person looked freaking incredible. It was really good. The wide body of the Benz Unplugged was incredible. Every time, like, that's the SpaceX. This is at Hawthorne, so like SpaceX is behind it. And all the employees just kept coming by, taking pictures the whole time we were there. It's freaking hilarious. They were just like riding by, and photos and videos. Hey, can I take a picture? Can I take a picture? So I mean, yeah, it just is incredible. Once you see it in person, it's pretty awesome. You're on mute.
Of course I'm on mute. So Yeah, so I think for me, my impressions were, again, it's as Joe was saying, you really have to see these trucks in person. I mean, every time I even see, even the truck on the left, just without any, I think it maybe has PPF, but really nothing on it done. It's still truly an amazing.
There's no PPF on the unplugged performance.
Yeah, so it was probably just raw. But either way, there was pretty much nothing really done outside of those the CyberHex rims and the wide fender. So that still looked amazing. It did look a lot more rugged too, as Joe was saying. So it was a beautiful truck. And then the one on the right, again, as Joe was saying, originally, like if you look at that picture, you kind of, in some ways, initially, I was actually turned off a little bit. But the rims plus just seeing it in person really just made it pop. And I think being able to drive this truck specifically on the roads of LA, trying to steer by wire, I mean, it's driving will be forever changed. It's in the same way that you utilize autopilot or full self-driving on those really long drives. That's the same thing that steer by wire is changing the game for turns. Being able to get in and out of tight spots. I think one thing that was interesting, so I think driving a Model X, it wasn't that big of a change. I think what's psychologically weird is that you actually can't see the front of the truck. So I think it's one of those things where like you're driving around, you're like, I actually can't see the front of it. So the good thing is that when you have the tunnel covered down, you actually have the back light or the rear camera showing. But I also felt like I kind of needed to turn on the front camera as well. So I think that was kind of an adjustment. So the height for me wasn't an issue, but I think it is trippy that, the windshield is so long in the front. And that's one thing I was telling Joe and Brandon is that the Cybertruck the Model X, the windows go behind you, whereas the Cybertruck kind of comes right up to your head. And so, the windshield obviously is longer on the Cybertruck, but you actually get part of that spaceship feel with the Model X. It's a little bit different with the Cybertruck. And it's interesting for those of you that have a steering, the yoke steering wheel, the new steering wheel almost feels exactly the same, and you barely turn it. You literally just go like this to make a left turn. You don't even have to do this full extension really ever. Maybe if you're making a complete U-turn, you only have to go 45 degrees, whatever that exact radius is. But the driving style is completely changed, especially when you, again, make those left hand and right hand and U-turns. But the thing rides really well. And I think we wanted to share a quick video of some impressions of, we literally pulled up to an El Pollo Loco and Starbucks area. And this was only within 3 minutes of the truck pulling up, and we just parked it there because we really actually did want people's impressions. And so this is me walking out of Starbucks. You could just see, kids, teenagers, adults kind of starting to gather around, and we were just parked on the side. And you don't see that with any other truck. And I was telling Joe and Brandon, I was like, this car is getting more, it stuns people, at least right now, and it's more polarizing than I would even think of a Bugatti Chiron, right? This truck will be a brand in itself. So I know I've been talking for a minute here, but I just really want, the UI is amazing. The 18.5-inch screen in front complements the truck really well. I'm glad they went bigger on that versus the smaller screen in the S and X. So that was really helpful. The UI is great. There, again, is no Tesla branding at all on this truck. The truck just has, literally the little polygon thing. And that's it. And yeah, I would just say, it was pretty radical to be able to drive. It looks like Amy's able to jump in. Hey, Amy, how's it going? We're just quickly unpacking our Cybertruck experience. So we got to see 2 of them on Wednesday, and we got to drive one as well. So we were just kind of going through that. yeah, so I think that wraps it up, Joe. I don't know if there's anything else, but hopefully that was helpful. Again, the steer by wire, it's a quick adjustment. You literally don't have you don't have much that you're going to need to adjust to with the steer by wire. And again, if you're used to a yoke steering wheel, even if you're not, again, because it has the top bar of it on it. So, but yeah, that's my thoughts. I don't know, Jeff, did you want to add anything?
No, I think as a listener, I think both of you are able to kind of translate for me some different quirks or things I wasn't aware of, both, driving the Cybertruck and kind of your experience and how the window is. I was just listening, and I enjoyed, hearing another Tesla owner just tell me their experience of actually driving the Cybertruck, because I'm not hearing enough of those experiences. A lot of the people, actually, some of the people that have received them are people that I've not heard, before talk about their driving experience with the car. So I like that you're able to compare and contrast it with current Tesla vehicles. And I'm Cybertruckless like Joe and you, and I'm looking forward to getting mine when it's available.
Yeah, I mean, the Cybertruck is going to be, it hits different, not only on the road as people's reactions. I mean, some of the expressions that we have, and I'll put out a video today of one expression, but we got some really good reactions. We'll be putting together a couple of reels of just people's reactions. I mean, from people at the mall, literally going like hitting a rail, as they're walking, or just more importantly, just saying, "Oh my God, what is that?" To be people dude, this is insane. This looks like a pixel or a Lego. But it's once people look up, because a lot of times people are either on their phones or just looking down. Once they look up, they're like, "What the hell is that?" And then some of them actually knew what it was, and because it's Los Angeles, they're pretty in tune with the latest things going on. But it was just insane, and the driving experience is new but quick to adjust. I still think that the windshield being as long as it is and not being able to see the literally the front, even the front of the frunk, it's a little bit trippy. But the great thing is that they have access to those cameras that just makes it easy. But everything else is great too. I mean, the back tailgate, to the extra space, to I think they have two 120 volts, 240 volt in the back. Being able to pull up the back row for additional space, if you just got stuff you don't want in the back. Driving with the tonneau cover down, it's not that big of a deal, because you have you just have to, instead of looking up, you have to look down. Kind of like if you remember when you got your first Tesla, going from looking straight at the screen of how many miles per hour, you have to look over to the right. So when you're trying to make a left hand, turn or lane change or right hand, you do have to look, instead of looking up, you look kind of at the screen instead. So there's subtleties like that make the adjustment of driving a little bit new. But just like anything, if you can adjust to those things, maybe in a couple of days, you'll be fine. It'll be fine. All right, so I think we wanted to hit on just our experience, because I think that was a pretty unique experience. Most of the people that are getting deliveries today are just employees, so it was a really unique experience for us to be able to get full access to the driving it or even seeing it. So again, Unplugged and T-Sportline, thanks for help on that. Obviously, big news this week. So it was funny. It was the night before we're literally driving down, Joe and I, and this breaks. The new Model 3 is released in North America. I wasn't expecting this to drop so soon. You started seeing some, pictures of it being at the Fremont factory. But what were your thoughts? I don't know if anyone wants to chime in on potentially what this could mean, or were you expecting this as soon as it dropped, or what are your thoughts? Not everyone at first. Let's go with Amy.
Yeah, I was ecstatic that it was released. I was suspecting it. I thought that was where the change in the tax credit was coming in from Tesla's guidance, knowing that had been the CATL battery in China. I wasn't sure what they were going to use in the US, but it seemed like that change in the tax credit guidance was because of the new Model 3. Let's remember all the differences in this car. It's improved on the exterior. It was already beautiful, but now it looks like a mini roadster. And they've improved a lot of the things that people thought were not quite as nice about the Model 3 compared to a Model Y. It's going to be significantly quieter inside. It has that mood lighting in it. Has a second screen in the back row, it looks like, that has been added now. And with the tax credit, I do believe it still applies if people lease the vehicle. That when they lease it, the $7,500 full tax credit is just applied over the lease payments, and they didn't lose it for that. But of course, with the Tesla lease, there is no ability to buy the car out at the end of the lease. So that's something to keep in mind. I think that people are going to have to slightly move projection numbers up for Tesla sales as they start to realize how popular this vehicle is going to be. I think, and the first market for it is going to be the original Model 3 owners that are ready for an upgrade. What did you think, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, first off, the Model 3 represents 25, I think, to 27% of Tesla's volume. So think of one of every 4 Teslas sold. It's a big deal. So it launched in Europe and Asia already, and this was the launch in North America. I mean, for me, on balance, on the positive side, I was pleasantly surprised that January 9th, that this thing's getting out right in the beginning of the year. We didn't know if it was going to be in March, April, or June, or we really didn't have a time frame. So for on your comment on the sales side, I think it's a big win for Tesla that this is released on January 9th. I think they nailed the product. We've talked about the product on prior shows as well, and all the improvements you discussed, Amy. And I think they nailed the product. And what's nice about this launch is they nailed the supply. So people are placing orders and getting delivery dates in January and February, and then it's pushing out now with the increase in orders. But the point is that it was the vehicle is available, the accessories in the shop were available, everything. So this is, I think, great execution. Just on balance, I didn't understand the midnight Eastern announcement. I know people are on Twitter all days of the night, so I don't understand why they would do that. I don't think there's an issue with overdoing the order book. I think Tesla would add capacity. They need to be adding capacity actually to Model 3, to be honest with you, to keep up with EV adoption and the growth. Because I think Model 3 volumes are going to grow year on year. So that'll be interesting to watch. So great product. They nailed the supply, and I'm glad it launched in a very early part of the year for Tesla's quarter and for Tesla's year.
Before we had Joe's take, I thought, because you were mentioning how amazing this product is, I have a quick video, the actual release video. I thought we could just take a quick look at that.
That bass slap, though. Just kidding. Go ahead.
I feel like the song was a little bit weird, but whatever. Joe, what was your thought, man?
You know what? It's crap. No, I'm just kidding. So I think they, again, like Jeff said, I mean, they nailed it, right? They made just the right amount of subtle changes to where they don't have to up in production and, do everything all over again. You got lights in the front end and the rear end, but you get to keep your doors, you get to keep the body shape doesn't change. You know what I'm saying? Like it's pretty smart of Tesla, like the subtleties that they make that also impact the vehicle and appearance enough to where people will be like, hey, I'll trade in mine for that. Or you know what I mean? And I just think it looks really good. I'm surprised they put the Tesla logos on it. It seemed like they were moving away from that for a little bit. So I was like, well, cool. At least they At least something gets to keep the Tesla logo. I'm interested in the used car market over the next 5 to 10 years. I think that's going to be pretty incredible. Because right now, even with the whole Hertz thing, some of those vehicles are like 20 grand that they're selling right now. So it's pretty wild.
Yeah, I agree with everyone's points. I thought the timing was now, right? I think especially if they're going to start, so they'll probably have some existing inventory on the legacy Model 3, which they can discount. I mean, legacy being new, but they're producing the new ones. I don't know how big their inventory would be, but at least in the U.S., Fremont's the only one producing the Model 3. So it's going to be interesting to see what that ramp is like, how fast they quickly turn that on. But I would agree with Jeff, Joe, and Amy, like everything you said. I think this product is truly amazing. I got a Model 3 in July of 2018, and you know, you're talking the car is roughly 6 years old, and you know, with this refreshed look, it really does change how it looks. I mean, the subtleties like the rear view or the back screen for the second row, to the front fascia, to the back lights, and then how they added like the ambient lighting and just all those subtleties, I think are going to, people who potentially had the Model 3 since 2018, 2019 may be looking to jump into this. Obviously, we'll get into this. Jeff, you shared this morning, right? It's pretty much breaking news. The point of sale for Tesla tax credits will be happening when you buy the car at $7,500 off. Again, we can get into implications of that. But as far as the 3 refresh goes, I'm really excited for it. I know other people, as they're considering buying an EV this year, they're going to be excited, and old Model 3 owners are going to be excited about it too. You're definitely seeing it. There are already several Bay Area showrooms showcasing this. But Amy, did you want to say something?
Yeah, along with what Joe was saying about the used car market, let's keep in mind what Elon Musk has talked about in the past, and that's Tesla's potential to unlock revenue going forward from these cars, even that are being sold in the used cars market. And this is because of FSD. So Tesla will have a second chance when somebody buys that used car to unlock FSD and get money back from all the cars that they've already produced. And this is not that is not something that many analysts have actually in their models for Tesla right now.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, you know, people's reactions. And, you know, I mean, obviously I know they bundle the 3 and the Y together. So I don't know if analysts are going to be asking kind of potentially like what that breakdown is. They're definitely going to be answering probably, or asking even in this earnings call, I think it's January 24th, they're going to be asking, hey, what's the orders have been looking like for this refresh Model 3? So that will be interesting to see. So I think we might as well just jump into this one. I'm going a slide ahead, but Tesla, you know, they're offering this point of sale $7,500 credit. I think that this is going to be a game changer, right? Because now the car literally drops. I don't have the exact number. Does anyone know the exact number?
One configuration 16.4% down overnight.
That, I mean, yeah, you're talking 15 to 16% literally savings straight up the gate. So this is all happening. You know, you can pretty much make this happen now. It literally looks, if you look at the bottom of this, shout out to Sawyer for breaking this news this morning. But you literally, when you're buying your car, you can select whether or not you want it at the point of sale or to receive it on your own tax credit. So this is going to be a big deal. But does anyone want to talk potential? I mean, I personally feel like, especially in the Tesla community, we've been talking about this probably for months. But now that we're at this point, what is the actual implications of this? Like, what are, you know, how is the market or new owners going to be reacting to this?
Yeah, I think the first challenge is going to be awareness. You know, how do people know that this happened? So that's going to be interesting to watch. Like, so if you're in the market for a Tesla and you've been in conversation with, you know, Tesla.com, the service center, you're going to be aware of it. If you're on Twitter and you're connected to Tesla, you're probably going to be aware of it. So I think the challenge is going to be is like, well, how do you, I think Tesla has the biggest lineup as a percentage of models that get the $7,500 credit. So there's no auto company in the US that will probably take more advantage of the credit and on the battery side as well than Tesla. So I think it's going to start coming out in the financials, to be honest with you. But I think the challenge for Tesla is really around awareness, and there's ways for them to understand that through surveys or whatever. I'm not a marketing expert, but yeah, this is a pretty big change in like you basically drive away, you have the purchase experience or to pick up your car, and you're, instead of doing the credit a year from now with your taxes and not knowing if you're going to get it, now it's there, it's before you pay, and you drive off with it in your monthly payment. So that's a big deal. The constructive side of it is the 3 is out of it for now, at least the new long range and standard and rear wheel drive 3. The current performance 3, I believe, will still get it. So yeah, what's Tesla's path to get back to that? I think that would be good to know. Yeah, I think, and the other thing is with the price, I know there's a lot of commentary about like, well, they're going to have to, if the Y is now down at these levels, they're going to have to adjust the 3. I don't know about that. I think that's debatable. This 3 is a better 3 than what was out there before. So you can't compare you can't compare the new 3 to the old 3 price, and the new and the older Y. I think the new 3 is offering a whole set of it, rear screen entertainment, the ambient lighting, all the different improvements. I think the pricing thing is going to be debatable, whether you have to do some big move on Model 3 or not. And then just finally, quickly on COGS, I think this product is going to ramp well because there's about 50%, a little over 50% reuse, and they reuse the more difficult structural components in the product that would be more capital intensive and more ramp intensive. So I think the ramp is going to go pretty quickly, and I also think they're going to get to their trough in COGS, or their peak reduction in COGS faster than anything you've heard recently from Tesla, like on the Cybertruck, for example. So I think they'll be able to do that maybe in the following quarter. So this is a ramp quarter for North America. I think now you're going to see a big reduction actually in Model 3 refresh COGS for Europe and Asia in this quarter.
I would be real quick before, I just want to say this for Jeff and for Amy and for you guys. I am curious to know if the restructuring of that back end helps them put a casting in instead of like what they were doing before, because that would help with the ramp. I would imagine if they could just utilize the castings in that way.
I mean, I haven't seen a teardown of the car, but from all information we have is they did not change to a casting. But I think we need to see a teardown of the vehicle. But I think there's been there's other information that says there's not a casting. I always like to wait to see the actual, like somebody buy a vehicle and tear it down. But yeah, so far we know that there's not one.
Yeah, that's interesting. Also, the Model Y is the only vehicle without a rear screen now. So, rip.
So one quick question I had for Jeff. I mean, well, that's going to be, Joe, that's a point. When are they going to release the Model Y refresh? Because, yeah, that's their best-selling car also doesn't have a rear screen, but their Model 3 does. But again, my quick question to Jeff is, and then we'll go to Amy on your impressions of this, but and what this means. But do you think that they're gonna release the Model 3 Performance sooner because of the point of sale? I mean, the thing is that the Model 3 Performance was, these are old numbers. With this tax credit, it was like $43,000. And so I feel like, if that's going to be the only Model 3 that is eligible for the tax credit, I would almost feel like they would want to prioritize that.
Yeah, I think they're still selling the current, the legacy design Model 3 Performance. So I think you can still go in I haven't looked at the order page. Maybe it's off the order page. Maybe it's on inventory only. But yeah, maybe Amy has a newer update on that. But I don't know the release date for the Model 3 before. I don't know what gates it. Is it a different battery? Are they doing something else? I'm not sure what the gating factor is for the Model 3 performance. Maybe others have ideas. Maybe Amy, what are your thoughts on the Model 3?
It's a little bit speculative, but yeah, you cannot order it. I was on the configuration page, and there's just the standard range, and the all-wheel drive and the wheel drive are the two models that you can order. You cannot order the performance right now, and I believe it's going to be a different battery. And because it's a different battery, then it may qualify for the tax credit. One of the things to keep in mind with the tax credit is there are income limits if you're not leasing the vehicle on the tax credit, and not everybody qualifies. So actually, for those people, it feels better to buy a Model 3 and not feel like you're paying a different price than other people are paying for the same car. So I think that there will be plenty of those people that will look at this and say, I'm gonna order that car now. It's brand new. And it's just come the same way that Tesla priced a foundation series of this Cybertruck. There are people that will pay a premium just to get it sooner. And then there are the people that don't qualify for the tax credit. And so between those two groups of people, Tesla will have orders for the first two models that are released for a while. But you will definitely have another contingent that is waiting for that performance version to come out that really wants that specific car. And I would hope that Tesla does do it sooner rather than later.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting because obviously they released this vehicle in Europe and China late last year, and they still haven't given any updates on that. So I think it'll be really interesting to see, as they obviously came out with it in the US, if at what point. I would assume at some point they're going to, but knowing them, they're probably going to take as well. I feel like if they release the Model 3 and if it's going to have a point of sale of $7,500 tax rebate, it's definitely going to, people, like I already know people that potentially have bought the Model 3 refresh, they are not going to buy the long range. They're going to cancel their order and do the performance. I mean, people have already stated that, like shout out to Brandon, Tesla Flex. Like, I think people want the performance one. So it really just depends on, they obviously are going to have a good strategy. Knowing Tesla, they're going to have a good strategy. Same thing like we're seeing with the limited edition Founder series. They're clearly, sent the 8th wave this past week. But we'll see how they launch that. But I know people are waiting for those specs. So I think the old one was like 0 to 60 and 3.1. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it's maybe less than 3. Who knows? But this is their one opportunity to take pretty much the track car and just or their mid-sized mass production car and really just take it to the next level. I mean, obviously it's not the Model Y, but so we'll see. The other thing too that broke this week was, and this was interesting. I mean, I feel like it's really weird. It's like the mainstream media is not covering this. Like we're just not seeing a whole lot about it. But I feel like there's so much signal that Legacy Auto is screwed, and they're just like fighting for their last bolts. It feels like literally. And but the mainstream media, it's like, so mainstream media is not covering this, and because they're being paid from advertising dollars by the big three, so they're not covering a lot of this stuff, and they're also trying to help push the narrative that EV demand is slowing down. And Jeff, you shared an amazing clip from Kramer the other day where he was literally just giving all of the bullets on what the mainstream media is saying, like maybe these things are difficult to fix, maybe people don't want them, maybe it's hard to drive, maybe accidents are happening because of autopilot. I mean, but it was just interesting. I feel like this is almost like, I don't know, like a new chapter of a book, it feels like, because the Super Bowl ads have always had, Ford, GM, or Stellantis ads. So I don't know what people's thoughts are, but I thought that was just, it was like almost like it was just a big churn of the page. It felt like.
I feel like they had to back out because they realized that they're not selling as many units, and the Super Bowl ads were really big for Tesla as opposed to for them. So I think they would have just been making ads to sell more Teslas. And right now you can see, like, just with everything we just mentioned, tax credit and all of that is just, I mean, I've always preached that Tesla can't be the only game in town, but man, Legacy Auto is just making it really easy for people to have simple choices to make. Besides Hyundai and Kia, I really don't see anything else happening for Legacy Auto. It's really kind of messed up because when you look at like what's popular across the globe, like all we have in America is Tesla doing it. Nobody else is really making a difference. And it's, I mean, from a continent standpoint, it's just like, man, really wish we had more players in this field, because clearly there's room for everybody, but they're just not taking the mantle and trying it at all. It's really wild.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, from being on the other side of this and being in the room when these decisions are made, one of the reasons to not do a major ad buy is when you don't have the supply or you don't have the product to fill that slot. You wouldn't be spending that amount of money because you're going to be driving traffic to your website, and then you're not going to have the product that people want, and it's going to be a waste of money. So in this case, they're taking their capacity down in EV, and they don't really, if you look at the Super Bowl ads last year to this year, they don't have a new EV that's in supply that they would want to even feature or talk about. And they are purposefully trying to not point people towards their EVs, because the more EVs they sell, the more money they lose based on the current design of their current EVs. So when you take all those factors together, and the fact that they have this narrative working now in the media, people don't want EVs as much as we thought. It would make sense for them to not have, unless they were going to do a big hybrid push, that would make sense for them to not do these ads. Finally, I think they're all kind of pinching the belt. You've seen them do a lot of different headcount reductions and other OpEx reductions. All of these companies are doing major reductions. So this is one area you go in and you cut. You do cut marketing spend when you're trying to tighten the belt below gross margin.
Yeah, one thing I just wanted to quickly, I loved your point on the fact that, yeah, at this point, they're kind of like, do we continue to point people to gas cars, which are obviously their bread and butter? And clearly they're not going to point people to electric vehicles because their EV demand is slow. So why it would just be sending a different narrative if they're spending millions of dollars to go buy electric vehicles. And I know you keep a close eye on inventory, but it was interesting. I saw a YouTube video, or sorry, it was a post on X, and I forgot who the user was, so sorry. But this person posted kind of their experience of going and checking out a Ford Lightning. And they said that the location that they went to had 53 Ford Lightnings sitting on one dealership lot. Can you imagine the amount of money they're losing on a daily basis for that truck? The person ended up not buying it, which I thought was pretty hilarious too. Just because he kind of gave this whole the whole story and then ended with I didn't buy it. But just knowing that one dealership has over 50 of these Ford Lightnings is just crazy. So, but yeah, I thought your point was really spot on.
Well, the interesting note to that, and I know Jeff speaks to this a lot, is those sales that these Legacy Auto have, they're not really sales, right? They just go to the dealership, they sit on a lot, whereas the sales you see from Tesla are actual sales to customers that are actually being sold. And so, I mean, man, that number disparity from what they move to that placeholder, which is the dealership, and all those sitting on the dealership it's a huge disparity from what's being sold as to what they've made. And I mean, Jeff speaks to that all the time. The days in inventory is just crazy. Like 70 versus Tesla's like less than 20. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, and the one other thing too is, I mean, Jeff would enjoy this, but there's the difference between, like, from an OEM's perspective, a sell-in versus a sell-through. The sell-in is pretty much literally when you're the OEM and you sell the product, but then, as you said, it goes to a disty or retailer. There are metrics then from there to look at the sell-through. So what is, as you said, what is like the difference between the sell-in to the sell-through? Because if you're launching a new product as like it's an OEM or, you know, a Dell or something like that, you know, you'll sell your new product in advance of the product launch to get your disties and retailers all prepared for that. But yeah, I mean, you know, I do think that there is something to be said about legacy autos, their EV demand potentially slowing down because, again, you know, they don't have a compelling product per se. And again, I'm saying legacy auto versus like Rivian and some of the other companies, you know, they have a compelling product. People are going to want to step up and go and buy those things. But it was just an interesting fact of, like, you know, that X post that I saw. Jeff or Amy, did you want to add something real quick, or you? Okay. So the other thing that I thought, you know, that broke this week, again, shout out to Sawyer. He did, you know, Cox Automotive put out this like price comparison, and, you know, where it just gave the average transaction price, and electric vehicles were at, you know, 51,000. Tesla specifically was literally flat at 50,000, and gas cars were at 49,000. And I thought, you know, like, what first came to mind was, like, not only is the electric vehicle, like, the cost of maintenance and ownership over a 5-year period, when you look at a Model 3 versus a Toyota Corolla, cheaper per mile, like the cost per mile is cheaper. But now the transaction price is almost at parity when you buy a brand new car. And so I, you know, like, really at some point, especially in Tesla's case, I mean, Tesla's like, they're like $1,200 away from that price point. And, you know, this number is going to go way down, especially once you throw in, you know, the next gen platform, the robot, or the $25,000 car. But it's just crazy. It's like, you know, the maintenance and cost of ownership is better for electric vehicles. At some point, the average transaction price is going to be better for electric vehicles too. So I thought that this was a really interesting stat that was put out. But Joe, you had something?
Yeah, it always harkens me back to the great time traveler of our day, Tony Seba. And what he has said is, like, that shift from, I mean, just everything you're saying, like, right, like, already the cost parity is there, but now you add on the fact that you have less maintenance, less regularly scheduled maintenance, and you're not paying for gas, you're not doing all these other things. I mean, that shift, that cross point, we're like almost at it. And I know that he predicted like 2028 because, again, he went to the future and he's from there. So, but yeah, we're at a crazy time, and the shift is happening faster than people expected and thought it was going to, and a lot of people aren't ready for it. And they shouted, you know what I mean? Like, for the past 2 years, like right at 2020, 2022, they were shouting like, man, we're doing this and we're going to do that. And we've got all these concept vehicles that we're making, and just wait until 2023 and 2024. And then now we're here and nothing's happened. But now they're like, well, now you wait until 2025, 2026. It's like, man.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. I mean, legacy auto, again, I don't know, you know, I don't know if they're just so short-term focused and they just want to you know, get their quick returns right now. But whoever is leading these companies, they're really not thinking about the future. And again, you know, Ford, I do want to say Ford obviously being the most forward-thinking out of those companies, but it's still, they're not doing themselves any service by continuing certain narratives and not making this transition, because we all know that Ford stopped the F-150 Lightning production. The Bolt on the Chevy for GM has not continued production until 2025. One other thing too, another stat that, again, that came out this week, shout out to Sawyer, the 2023 pure electric vehicles comparison here. I mean, you have here are just the stats. Like, I mean, you look at Tesla, 664,000. And then you look at Ford with 73,000, GM at 67,000, and then Toyota at 15,000. When you look at just, the comparison of those numbers, I mean, you're talking Tesla's 10x to whatever you want to call the competition, but it's pretty insane just to like see the stark difference between really legacy auto and where Tesla is today. I don't know if there was any thoughts on this.
Lucid will pass Toyota next year. That's a prediction.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing I'd say is if you look at the GM and you look at Ford's numbers, it's really interesting because those are vehicles that they actually don't want to produce. And I would say probably 40 or 45K of the GM numbers, the Bolt. And then the Ford number, it was at half and half, or maybe 40K F-150s, and the rest. This is to consumer retail. This doesn't include the vans, I'm assuming, but so the rest is Mach-E. So these are vehicles that every time they produce one, they're putting they're physically just putting, like, they're flushing money down the toilet. It could be upwards of $30,000 per vehicle or more. So they. It's kind of a reluctant, if you look at the 72 and the 66K, it's kind of reluctant. Like, they actually don't want to produce those. And Tesla, I think, is going to be going the other direction. I think they're going to be moving that 664 up closer to 900K this year, maybe even higher, again, with the tax credit and just with EV adoption. And the fact that GM and Ford really don't have a product to put in, that they want to scale. So and there's the devil's in the details. So when Ford announced that change on the F-150, that was a capacity reduction. So that means they won't be able to produce more than half the capacity they had before. They may be, as you were saying, John, they may be producing zero, because if you have 150 days of inventory of a product, for example, I think it could even be more on some of the F-150 variants, the electric variants. There's weeks you just stop production because you have so much in channel. Back to your sell in versus sell out conversation. You have so much in channel, there's no reason for you to produce. So when I bundle that and I look back at the prior slide of the EVs, the average transaction price of an EV versus ICE, what this portends is, like, to people that work in the auto industry, there's more money and more growth to be made if you're going to produce an EV in volume versus producing ICE. ICE capacity is well ahead of ICE demand. So you've got fixed assets kind of cratering on top of your fixed cost structure for ICE. And it's going to get worse, actually, as this continues. So that's why they're trying to kind of have this middle ground with hybrids, so they can continue ramping kind of ICE supply-based ICE technology and keep that going, while they are checking a little bit of a box with electrification, but not full electrification. So this is just kind of like why they're doing what they're doing. But I don't see a meaningful change. The big thing I think see for Tesla this year is brand new Model 3 and EV adoption growing in North America. It just, to me, is a really good mixture. I think they could have a huge jump. I think they had a 20-25% jump in production year over year in North America. I think it could even be higher this year, just given the pullback of everyone else and the growth of EV adoption.
Yeah, it's, I think like when I think of like technology, right, as you made that point, like, what exactly is the cars that these legacy auto companies are going to release in the next couple of years as they go to all these auto shows? What exactly are they announcing? I mean, especially, is it just going to be these hybrids, as you were saying, kind of that middle ground. I think that probably is going to be the case, and the focus is going to be, as you said, hybrids, because that's in line with their narrative. But as far as like the pure gas, like what exactly are they going to be changing? And you could say that gas cars maybe haven't really changed in the past 10, 20, maybe even longer years. Obviously, some of that has changed with Apple CarPlay and having a screen in the software. But the reality is now, these legacy auto companies, as you say, they're literally just going to be advancing or pushing hybrids and not really their gas cars. But then what becomes special about their gas cars? It's but I don't know, maybe they've literally stuck their head in a hole and they don't want to see the reality of what's ahead of them. And they're just going to continue to push this, because that's what it seems like. I mean, the writing is literally on the wall. I mean, when you look at the average transaction price, the cost per mile, as you were saying, just all of those stats continue to just show that electric vehicles is the way, and they continue to push off their production transition. We already knew, even before these production transitions, we already knew that both GM and Ford said that they're not going to be profitable on electric vehicles till 2030. Now that's going to be probably early 2030s, if not mid 2030s. So it's just, I don't know. It's hard to really have much hope for legacy auto. And I know we say that a lot, but yeah. Oh, Jeff,
companies are trying to grow. I mean, just companies are trying to grow. Suppliers are trying to grow. So if ICE isn't growing, so first off, there are base effects. I mean, 80% of the cars, sold in North America are ICE vehicles. So if you're in that business, you will make a lot of money in the coming year. The question is like, what will you be telling your investors in terms of year-on-year growth? If you're tied to ICE, it's going to be very difficult, if not impossible, for you to grow unless you have some massive innovation. And if you're tied to EV, you're going to be getting the 20, 30, 40, 50% or more type growth. And that's where the R&D dollars go to suppliers. That's where the best resources go at suppliers. It's not all about suppliers too. It's also partners, whether it's software partnerships, whether you name it. That's where all the money goes. And eventually that's where the ad dollars will eventually go too. But right now, today, I mean, in all, being totally transparent, there's a huge base effect with ICE. There's 80% of every vehicle sold at ICE. I think it's 9 or 10% is hybrid, and then the rest is EV. So there's still money to be made for them, but it's more of like, what are you doing year on year in terms of growth? If they're not involved in EV, they're not going to be getting the kind of growth.
Yeah, I mean, so everything you're saying is correct, but how do they change that narrative? Because they are right now dumping water out of the boat that's sinking. You know what I mean? Like you can't stay on it. You know what I mean? Like they can't just keep like trying to do these repairs, band-aiding the issue when you can see like the life raft is EVs and you just got to get on it. Yeah, maybe not everybody can fit, but I mean, at some point you got to make that sacrifice. It's
going to take them a couple of generations of product rollout. That's why they said not this decade, because they're going to come out with new EVs 2026, 2027. And remember, just like it takes Tesla a year or so to ramp up something like the Cybertruck, it's going to take them the time to get into volume too. So if you hear a year about them releasing a vehicle in 2026 or 7, just you have to tack on time for that to get into production. But yeah, it's going to take them a couple of spins or iterations. But right now, they don't have they don't have the unit economics down where they could build a single car below $40,000, which is where a lot of the volume is, profitably. So they don't have that on the drawing board yet. And then they, once they get on the drawing board, then they have to build the prototypes. We all know the prototypes can be easy. And then you get into production, they'd be able to replicate that cost structure. So I think to answer your question, Joe, I don't think they come back in the same form that they left EV. I think they have to come back in the form of some sort of partnership where there's another company out there that does something much better than they are doing, and they're going to have to buy it from them if they want to participate in EV. Because by the time they return, EVs are going to be at a much greater scale and run rate than when they left. See, they could have limped in the EVs in the last couple of years, and if they had a really good design with really good unit economics, they could have been reasonably successful. It's going to be very hard to limp in the EVs in 2027, 2028, because their run rate's going to be so high. The Chinese are going to be super competitive. The Koreans are already super competitive. And of course, you know, where will Tesla be? So and again, the other thing is they're benchmarking what they see from Tesla today. What you see from Tesla today is not what they're going to be shipping 2, 3, 4 years from now. They're going to continue innovating.
Yeah, I think as we watch this happen in real time, and you know, people love to spell doom and gloom for Legacy Auto, but like you say, they've got to create these partnerships. This has got to happen whether they like it or not. But because they are not ground up like Tesla and doing things themselves, and they're, you know, going into these partnerships, I mean, that cuts into their profitability as well, right? Like they just, like, yeah, you can have like Magna make some part or whatever, but because you didn't make it yourself, now you got to add that cost for the customer. So you're still not, your COGS are still not going to be what Teslas are.
Yeah, go for it, Amy.
Yeah, I would. These are excellent points, and then you look at it, and Wall Street in their models for 2030 has Tesla not at the 20 million vehicles that Tesla wants to produce, but at 7.5 million vehicles. And there's 50 to 60 million vehicles of new cars sold a year. So where is that other capacity coming from in 2030 if it's not coming from Tesla, if Tesla's not even at that 20 million figure in the Wall Street numbers? And I don't know who. And in the meantime, Tesla is planning to come out with their next gen vehicle. They're shooting for a price point half of a Model 3. So 25K, 30K, we'll see where that comes in. That's going to start competing with used cars in price point. And Tesla's looking at $4 to $5 million vehicle a year volume in it. So the future for Tesla is really bright. The Chinese and Koreans also have competitive cars. They'll certainly pull up some of that number, but I mean, 60 million vehicles, that's a large number to get to. And as the EV adoption continues, a car is one of the most significant purchases a family makes. And when they make this purchase, they want to know that if anything happens, if they change their mind, that they have resale value. They don't want to spend that much money in a way that's just like throwing it away. So what is the resale value of an ICE car going to be 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, or the average time that a family would keep a car? And it starts to become compelling. Even if you think you might want to buy ICE, what are you going to sell it for? And especially once FSD is released in a wide stream adoption, if your car does not have access to full self-driving and does not have that tech in it, what would you be able to sell it for? And that's going to be one of those things where we really see the adoption start to accelerate.
Yeah, I think both Jeff and Amy, you both made chilling points. I mean, the reality is that, you know, Legacy Auto taking these shortcuts now and, you know, putting off EV production is really, like, it's just chilling to think, like, they are literally kind of like how they are now, right? The whole car, it says Ford on the front, but on the back, it's 500 suppliers, you know, creating all the parts. So, you know, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, this is not even, this could be a whole discussion in itself, which is really interesting. At some point, is Tesla selling their castings to, you know, other OEMs? Are they selling other parts that they're starting to license? I mean, that's, you know, as they are selling their superchargers, like the hardware to like BP and some of these other companies, and really becoming, they may not be the face anymore of the supercharger because it says BP on the front, but it's Tesla on the back. You know, that could be a really interesting model. And of course, all that stuff is not factored in, but it's one of those things where, you know, 3 to 5 years from now, as these legacy autos come back to or revisit electric vehicles, Tesla will be, so much further ahead. BYD, even Toyota just said, I think they'll have like more of an EV production line in 2026. I mean, all of these companies are just, really going to have to go to partnerships, kind of like full self-driving. It's going to be one of those things where, but there's a difference kind of there. This is now the way that they build the cars is going to have to be outsourced. I mean, it already is, but I'm just saying it's like they're going to really have to go to some of the companies who have it figured out on how to make an electric vehicle. They're going to have to go to BYD. They're going to have to go to a Tesla and say, hey, we want to buy the batteries from you. We want to buy the castings, and then we'll just stick a bunch of other random parts on it. But at least the car hopefully will communicate, because that's going to be Tesla software. Again, the possibilities are endless, so I don't want to speculate too much. But those points there are really chilling. And then you add on full self-driving, then it really like, when you think of the way the car's made to the way it's operated with the Tesla software, it's just going to be one of those things where Tesla's setting itself up to really become potentially a big supplier, which is insane to think. I mean, Jeff could unpack that probably for days, to think of Tesla as a supplier for other OEMs. But yeah, I know we're a little bit past time, so I want to be respectful of people's time. And so please make sure to patronize all of our wonderful hosts. They give up about an hour and a half of their week, and block this time out. So please give all of them a follow. They're tagged on X. Same thing. Their handles are in the YouTube description. Also, too, referral codes are there as well. So please feel free to use their referral codes if you are looking to buy a Tesla. But thank you all for tuning in this week. And we hope to see you next week.